Why do you come out of the shower clean, but your towel gets dirty? All right, what do you think? Who's the goat? Why do I have to learn algebra? Not everything has a simple answer, but that shouldn't keep us from asking great questions.
Transit, what's up, guys? How's it going? Guys, it's so good to see you. For those of you that I haven't had the chance to meet, my name is Ashlyn, and I'm super pumped that you're here. Also, rising sixth graders, hello to you. Also super pumped you're here. Guys, you get to officially be transit students in just 2 weeks. Are y'all excited about that? Yeah, we're so excited to have you. It's gonna be an amazing time these next 3 years going throughout middle school. Well, today we are actually finishing up a series we've been in. Those of you that have been with us in transit the last few weeks, you know it's this series called Great Questions, where we pose a question and we talk about an answer. Rising sixth graders, to clue you in, this is what we're talking about. Different questions that you guys might have regarding your faith, regarding your relationship with Jesus, regarding how life is. But today, I kind of want to turn it a little bit on y'all. I want to ask you guys a question first. Are you okay with that, if I ask you a question first? Yeah. Okay. How many of y'all have ever been asked this question? What do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be when you're... Everyone in here? Amazing. Guys, I had been asked this question too when I was your age, and honestly, younger than your age. In fact, I can remember back to when I was probably like 3 or 4, and I would go to my grandparents' house, and I will never forget, they had this little toy set of like doctor things, so like a little stethoscope and a little thermometer, a little like fake thing of Band-Aids, and oh my goodness, did I think I was the greatest doctor in the entire world. I would be a doctor to my little like baby dolls, I'd be a doctor to my stuffed animals from a very little age. So if you had asked me then, what do I want to be when I grow up? I would have said, a doctor. Well, I still thought this even on into middle school. But then some things kind of went wrong for me in middle school. I kid you not, 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, all 3 different instances, either it was a friend getting hurt and like scraping themselves and bleeding, or like literally in science biology class, they're talking about blood or injuries, and I passed out. And I don't mean just like got queasy or a little lightheaded. I mean like flat on the floor, pale face, like completely almost unconscious, to where people are like having to wake me up and like splash water in my face. One time, most embarrassing one of them all, in 7th grade, it was in science class. I was sitting in my desk and I literally fell over like out of my desk, tumbling onto the floor. Whole class laughed. They brought a wheelchair in. I was like picked up, put in the wheelchair, taken to the nurse's office. Tragic. But it was in middle school that I figured out, you know what? I don't know if I can be a doctor. If I can't stand on my own 2 feet, then I don't think they want me, like, in the operating room performing a surgery. I don't think that's quite up my alley. So I got to this point where I was like, you know what? I think because of whatever it is in me that just, like, sees blood and then boom, passes out, I think I kind of ruined my chances of being a doctor. And so figured that out in middle school and kind of started to go a different direction after that. Now, y'all said that you've been asked this question before. What do you want to be when you grow up? And I'm sure in this room, there are people, maybe similar to me, who want to be one thing and then it changes later on in life. Or maybe you're the one who you're the big dreamer. You're dreaming so big, like you want to go whatever, all the way play pro football, basketball. You want to be a professional singer, artist, whatever it may be. You're a big dreamer over here. Or maybe some of you are the planner, where you literally have like to the T, the next 15 years of your life planned out of like, oh, I want to go to this school and get this degree and do this job. Or maybe you're just trying to survive middle school, because we've all been there. Or those of you that are about to come to middle school, you're just trying to survive middle school the next 3 years. No matter where you fall on the spectrum, we all kind of wrestle with this question, what do I want to be when I grow up? And I think if we take it a step farther, this also applies to our relationship with Jesus. There are people that we get asked a lot of times like, hey, what do you think God's will is for your life? Another way of saying that is, what do you think God's plan is for your life? When it comes to you having a relationship with Jesus, following Jesus, people ask, well, what do you think his will is? What do you think you're supposed to do in light of what God says? And so as you're kind of wrestling with this, and as I've wrestled with this too, I kind of got to the point where I was like, you know what? I had this idea and this plan, this dream of being a doctor, and I kind of messed it up. So like, if God has a plan for me too, can I also ruin God's plan for my life? Or maybe you take it a step farther than that and it's like, wait a second, have I already ruined God's plan for my life? Have I ruined God's plan for my life? And I look at this and I see the word plan. And all of us in this room know what it's like to plan for something. Maybe it's you're planning like how to get your homework assignment done, and you know that I have to start on it at this time when I get home from school in order to be able to have dinner in time just to like chill by myself before I go to bed. Or maybe you're already thinking, hey, I want to play JV, varsity, maybe intercollegiate sports. So you're like, I need to get on this sports team in this position with this coach, with these people in order to make my way there. You're following this plan that you set out for yourself. Or maybe it's like whether you're in orchestra or band or theater and you're like, no, I need to practice this many hours and have this many opportunities so that I can get this chair or this lead role or whatever it may be, and you have this plan of how to get there. But when it comes to plans that we feel all the time right now, there's a lot of pressure that comes with that, because I think oftentimes we get to the point where we like take one wrong step and we feel like, man, we're toast. Like we took one wrong step, we fell off, we're left behind, we've ruined it. And so I think it's only natural to ask ourselves this question like, well, if that's how other plans work, can I ruin God's plan for my life, or have I already ruined it? Well, I want to tell you about a guy named Paul. He lived a long time ago. This is a guy who actually used to hate Jesus, and he actually used to hate the followers of Jesus. And God came into his life and completely flipped it around to where he spent his whole entire life telling other people about Jesus. And we have record of this. He wrote some letters to different churches at the time, and one of the letters he wrote was to a church in Philippi. And this was actually one of the first churches ever to have started. And so these are kind of like the guinea pigs to what it's like to have a relationship with Jesus, to follow Jesus, to know what it's like to actually follow God's will, God's plan for your life. And this is what he says to him. Look at this in Philippians 1:6. It says, being confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. And guys, I love this word, confident, because this means that you're certain, that you have a firm trust, a firm belief that God, who began a good work in you, is going to carry it on to completion. He's going to carry it on to completion. God created you so uniquely, so amazingly, gifted in amazing different ways, but it's not like he just created you and then just like left you here on the earth and then walked away and is like, okay, well, it's up to them. Like, I'm on autopilot now. No, that's not what Paul is saying. He's saying that he's actually going to continue to carry on that good work of creating you to completion. He's going to give it his 100%. He's not going to stop halfway. He's going to be with you in it all. The God who created you is for you and is with you. And so what I really think Paul is saying is that, guys, God has a purpose for you, and it's good. It's so, so good. But if you're anything like me, I look at this phrase and I kind of question some things. I look at that word good and I think about my life and I'm like, well, wait a second. You know, these different hard things have happened and I wouldn't describe those as good. No, they're really hard and really sad and really hurtful. Like, that doesn't line up. That doesn't make sense. Or I think about how I've acted in life, maybe how I've treated other people. And it's like, well, wow, I really was unkind or mean or dishonest or whatever the word is to that person. So I wouldn't describe that as good either. And so sometimes we think about our lives and what they're like, and they don't necessarily seem good. And so we question, wait a second. So am I like not in God's plan anymore? Am I not living out God's purpose? Do I not get to experience God's goodness? And this is why I think we struggle with this, is because we tend to view our lives kind of like this. How many of y'all have ever been to a circus in here, or seen a video of a circus, or maybe you've seen the movie Dumbo, it's a circus? Okay, tightrope, right? Crazy talented people are able to balance on a tightrope suspended like bajillion feet, miles, almost seems, in the air. In this tightrope, I'm not gonna suspend it in the air because I'm not that skilled, but the tightrope is there, and then one foot in front of the other, they're trying to balance, and they hopefully make it to the end, but if they fall off, there's no way of getting back up there easily. They have to like go climb a super high thing because it's this thin, little, narrow path that one wrong step means that they've ruined their chances of making it all the way across this. And I think that's how we view life sometimes. We view life like we're walking on a tightrope, and one wrong step, one mistake, one bad thing keeps us from actually following God's plan and getting to live in his goodness. But that's not what Paul is talking about. No, I think a better story of what it's like to live life with Jesus, to follow Jesus, is actually more like a hike. Picture this with me. You and God are going on a hike together because he's always with you. We just learned that in this verse. Like, he is going to be there till completion, 100%. He's always going to be with you, and you're going on this hike. And on this hike, maybe you come across some signs that look kind of like this. It says, caution, primitive trail, difficult hiking. It's like, well, wait a second. I don't know if I want to walk up that. Like, this is going to be difficult. This is going to be hard. Maybe I'm going over rocks. Maybe I'm going up a mountain. I don't know what's ahead. But God's right there with you the whole entire time. Or maybe you also come across a sign that looks kind of like this. There's two arrows pointing in a different direction. Now, this particular sign is in Arches National Park in Utah. So pointing left is one arch. Pointing right is another arch. Both are incredible. But you come to this crossroads and you're like, well, what am I supposed to do now? Where am I supposed to go? And it's in these moments in life that I think what God is saying is like, hey, you have the ability and you have the power to choose. But when you choose, just trust me that I'm going to be there with you every step of the way, and we're going to get to the final destination that you need to be at. But you have the freedom and the power to choose, so you don't have to be stumped by this. And so what I think Paul is saying in this passage is like, hey, yeah, life is hard sometimes. It's tricky. It can be really, really sad. It can be really, really hurtful. I know a lot of you are walking through different things. And there's times in life that like you don't know which decision is the right one to make. But God's with you in every single scenario. But I think oftentimes in life, we get so zoomed in on what's like right in front of us, that rocky path, the path that's going different ways, and we're just like looking down at our feet. I don't know if y'all been hiking, but a lot of times I'm like looking down at my feet to make sure I'm not gonna trip over something, but we miss the bigger picture. So I actually had the opportunity to hike some of these trails in Utah, and look at this. This was where I ended up after hiking. This amazing, beautiful, honestly majestic arch that's made out of rock. Literally so cool. We're so tiny. This thing is massive. And I just remember standing there in awe of what I was looking at. But had I given up along the way because I was so worried about what was just right in front of me, I would have missed the bigger picture. I wouldn't have gotten to see this. And so what I want you guys to remember is that God has a purpose for you, and it's good. And this is because he's leading you to something good every step of the way. And he's never going to leave you alone. He's always going to be by your side. And yes, things are hard, and yes, things are tricky here on earth, and yes, things get confusing and they don't make sense. But one day, there's going to be everything created new, everything created perfect, everything created good, and we're going to get to see the final picture. And so as we wrap up, I want you guys to think about the question that we posed at the beginning. What do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be when you grow up? And then my encouragement to you is that in small group today, you actually kind of unpack this a little bit more. Maybe your plans are working out perfectly. Maybe they feel a little bit messed up. Maybe they seem great. Maybe they don't seem good. Maybe they seem hard. Whatever it may be, wherever you're at, I want you to talk about it with your small group. And I want you always to remember that God is with you, and he's for you, and he loves you so, so much. So let me pray for us, and then I have a few announcements to make. God, thank you so much for this day. I thank you so much for these students that you have brought here to Transit, and I thank you so much for what you're doing in each and every one of their lives. And I thank you that no matter what happens in life, no matter what trail we're going on, whether it's hard or easy, that you're with us all the time and that you're never going to leave us. So I thank you for your love for us, and I thank you for this day, and I thank you for these students in these small groups. In your name I pray, amen. Okay, guys.